Ethiopia's federal government has come under a lot of pressure from humanitarian agencies. This comes as tens of thousands of people continue to flee the fighting in northern Ethiopia and cross into Sudan. Now, joining me for more is the Assistant Representative Program at the UNHCR, the United Nations Refugee Agency, Mr. Jens Hesemann. Thanks for joining us on News Central now.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Now, what are the implications of the crisis on food security, considering the number of people who are unable to access food and farmers who are unable to sell their produce with the blockade denying aid and access to displaced persons?
I'm speaking to you here from the UNHCR office in Khartoum in Sudan. So we are very much preoccupied with receiving the refugees seeking asylum here in Sudan from Ethiopia. Over the last 2 weeks, just over 42,000 refugees have fled to Sudan, and the priority here right now is to provide life-saving humanitarian aid for those arriving. That includes safe drinking water, shelter, food, sanitation, and other essential support such as medical support at the border points where they arrive. Another important point here right now is that it's not in a refugee situation. International good practice says that a camp is usually located 50 kilometers from the border for various reasons. So for us, the decongestion of the border points and the transfer to a camp for the inland is also a big priority. So we're working on that as well.
Oh, great. Now, in spite of what looks like a humanitarian crisis in East Africa, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed seeks to be getting support from other East African leaders. Why do you think this might be the case, or this is the case?
I think from our perspective here right now in Sudan, the priority is the humanitarian response to support those refugees fleeing. Over the last days, the refugee flow has actually reduced a little bit. It's still significant. Just yesterday, we had 700 new arrivals, but there were earlier days, a week or 10 days ago, where we had up to 5,000 people in one day. So that's important. What we've seen here in Sudan is really a very positive response of the local communities and of the government. The local communities have shared the little they have. They've shared their food items and other items with the refugees, and the government of Sudan has given asylum to those who were seeking to flee, and they've allocated land for new camps. So that was all very positive and in conformity with international humanitarian law.
Now, what's the current situation with regards to news coming out of Tigray? Is the Red Cross, other United Nations sister agencies, have they been allowed to go assess the situation there and provide material support to those in need in Tigray itself?
So from our perspective here in Sudan, again, what we're preoccupied with is those who are seeking to flee to Sudan as refugees, and we're receiving them here and providing it. Of course, we speak to them to see, if they have particular concerns or assistance needs. And some of the arriving refugees have spoken to us about a situation of war in Ethiopia, that they've been affected by incidents of violence. And we're still, understanding this better and are talking to the refugees arriving. But the priority here right now is the life-saving aid. As you can imagine, a few days ago, these individuals, or just over 2 weeks ago, they were leading a normal life in Ethiopia, and now they had to take the little they could take and flee across the border. I've encountered personally a family who's had a newborn child. I asked how old that child is, 10 days young. They basically have fled with a newborn over this border, which is just a few days old.
Now, finally, Jens, it's been quite a remarkable year with the global pandemic, dealing with the fallout of COVID-19, and there's some thoughts in some quarters about donor fatigue, that the United Nations agencies are already stretched for donation. Do you think the UNHCR has what it takes to deal with this new refugee situation we're seeing in Sudan with the ongoing crisis in Tigray?
Well, in terms of the new refugee influx from Ethiopia, it is a very significant influx, and it is definitely a burden for Sudan. But what we must also say, as UNHCR, we used to deal with large refugee streams. I mean, this is still comparatively small to other situations. I mean, in the Syria situation, we talk about millions of displaced people. I mean, for now here in Sudan, we've received just over 42,000 refugees. This is not to say it's a small situation, and we're mobilizing the additional support needed. We're mobilizing teams and resources. But it's not yet at the scale where we say, you know, this is such a massive crisis that we risk being overwhelmed. No, we're quite confident that we can support Sudan with this here to manage this humanitarian situation and the needs, to meet the needs of the refugees. It will take some time to mobilize to the east. What should be said about the donors? We are, of course, seeking more support. Now, the COVID-19 situation has brought more needs also in donors' countries, and I think they are also spending more resources there. We're seeing that, and we are concerned about this, but we're constantly appealing for more support for international humanitarian aid.
Thank you very much for your time, Jens Hesemann. It's been a pleasure talking to you.